Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Career Choice Series webinar on criminal law. The Career Choice Series is designed to help you choose your career path. Whether you're a law student, young lawyer, or transitioning attorney, find out what it's like to work in various practice areas and the best way to position yourself to get there. The Career Choice Series is brought to you today by ABA Legal Career Central, Law Student Division, Young Lawyers Division, and the Criminal Justice Section. The Criminal Justice Section has a diverse and multidisciplinary membership of over 15,000 members, including prosecutors, private defense counsel, appellate and trial judges, law professors, correctional and law enforcement personnel, law students, public defenders, and other criminal justice professionals, making it uniquely situated to address the pressing issues facing today's criminal justice system. The Young Lawyers Division is here to help new lawyers navigate the early years of their career and law students prepare for life after law school. ABA Legal Career Central is a career center that offers both career development resources and a job board for law students, lawyers, and other legal professionals across all disciplines and career stages. The Law Student Division has just introduced premium benefits, which includes a savings of $250 on Barbary Bar Review, $25 off West academic casebooks, and a legal ethics bundle that includes a free Model Rules of Professional Conduct ebook. Upgrade to premium for $25. Sign up today at aba4lawstudents.com/go premium. Today's moderator is Liz Stone, Managing Director of the Dubin Group, a legal search firm based in the Bay Area. She is a former litigator and currently performs stand-up comedy at clubs throughout the country. She is a member of the ABA Legal Career Central Board. Liz, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Emily, and thank you all for joining this program. I'm excited to introduce today's speakers. Emily. Thanks. Today we have Sidney Butcher, who is an attorney at Whiteford, Taylor & Preston in Baltimore. He focuses his practice on business litigation and white-collar defense. Sidney's a former assistant state's attorney for the Office of the State's Attorney for Baltimore City, where he worked his way up to the Major Investigation Unit. He prosecuted violent repeat offenders, correctional officers, and ran wiretap investigations. We also have Virginia Murphrey today, who is the Chief Public Defender for the 10th Judicial District of Minnesota. She's been a public defender her entire legal career. She's also taught trial advocacy at Mitchell Hamline School of Law, as well as their two predecessor schools. And she's a regular instructor at the Minnesota Public Defender Trial Institute with the National Defender Training Project. Welcome, Sidney and Virginia. We're both so excited to have you here today. I'd like to start by talking about your career path and how you got into this practice area. Sidney, can you tell us how you got into your career?
Well, good afternoon. Thank you. And yes, I can. I started off, like you had already stated, in the state's attorney's office in Baltimore City. How I started with that job was basically I applied to a number of offices throughout the country after I graduated law school in Kansas, and Baltimore City was the office that was looking forward to having me get started. After I progressed through my career with the state's attorney's office, getting a lot of on-your-feet training and courtroom experience, I decided to change my path a little bit and join the firm where I'm at currently. Basically, the point of doing that was that I felt that I already had a lot of experience with criminal law, but I also wanted to get into more complex criminal law matters as well as business litigation. So I handle a wide range of litigation matters involving insurance defense as well as white-collar defense with crimes such as fraud, security fraud, embezzlement, investigations by the SEC, things of that nature. So I'm looking forward to the discussion and willing to answer any question that's out there.
Great, thank you. And Virginia, can you tell us about your career path?
Yes, Liz, thank you. I knew in going into law I wanted to do something to help people. And my interests originally were in civil rights law. And so I was fortunate to have a clerkship with an attorney who is an ACLU panel attorney And what I discovered was that civil litigation takes forever, and there are lots of depositions. And summarizing depositions was not very fun. And while I believed in the cause, it was just not pleasurable for me. And someone suggested that I go volunteer at a public defender's office. And I got there and I found my people. It was doing the type of work that I really wanted to do to help people. The people were fun and interesting and stimulating. The work was fast-paced, and the clients were very interesting, and so I fell in love with it. And that really just opened the door to my entire career path. So in some ways, it was an accident. I ended up where I am.
Oh, that is great. And I'd like to just get an overview of your practices. Virginia, can you just give us an overview of what your practice is and what your work entails?
Sure, I can. Currently, I'm an administrator. And so what I do is hire people, maintain a budget, represent our agency statewide. In Minnesota, Public Defense is a statewide agency. And so when it says I'm the Chief Public Defender of the 10th District, there are 10 districts. And so we have a statewide system where there are people that do my job in each of those districts, and then we have a board of public defense, a state public defender. And what I think people who are on the line probably want to hear more about is the day in the life of the attorneys who do the work with the clients. I mean, essentially, I know that people hear a lot of information about public defenders having a tremendous amount of cases. All of that information is true. And essentially, the public defenders have lots of cases that they have to prepare, meet with clients, go to court, determine the direction of the case, make those decisions, try to counsel people, and then either settle the case in a way that is comfortable for the client, or go to trial if the client we can't come to a settlement with the client. And so,
just so we can be clear for everyone on the line, can you just briefly explain exactly what a public defender is and what that means in the context of criminal law?
Yes, thank you. What a public defender is, Gideon versus Wainwright was a case where Clarence Gideon believed that he had a right to representation and he didn't have any, and so he took the case to the Supreme Court, and it was a case out of Texas, and it was a theft, if I remember correctly. And so the Supreme Court ruled that people have a right to have representation on criminal matters in court despite their inability to pay. And so what happens in the context of a public defender is my exclusive job, and the people that work with me, is that the court evaluates an applicant's financial situation and determines whether they qualify, whether they're indigent, to have an attorney. And then the court will appoint my office to represent those clients. And so typically, it varies from state to state exactly who is represented. In Minnesota, if it is an offense, a criminal offense, for which you can receive a jail sentence, then you can apply for a public defender. And if you qualify financially, then you will be appointed by the court a public defender.
Great. And is there a difference between a federal public defender and a state public defender?
Yes, absolutely. The state public defender is the state court system in which state crimes are charged. And a federal defender is in the federal system where federal cases can be charged. Oftentimes, people can be charged for an offense in both jurisdictions. And sometimes that does happen. But a lot of times, federal crimes are exclusively violations of federal law, and state crimes are exclusively violations of state law. Sometimes that overlaps, and people can be charged in both courts.
Great, thank you. Now, Sidney, can you give us an overview of your practice, which is different from Virginia?
Yes. In fact, I was basically on the opposite side as a prosecutor, and I spent most of my career in the trenches representing the city of Baltimore, state of Maryland, and the citizens on deciding who to go forward with prosecution and who to try to give a break to. To that end, when I transitioned to Whiteford, Taylor, and Preston, I've kind of expanded that practice in terms of also handling civil litigation. So as in our law firm, we have associates, counsel, partners. Most law firms operate that way. My position is counsel, and basically I work for the other partners in the firm while I'm in the process of trying to develop my own book of business. So I think this is also kind of an important part. To be successful at a law firm, you got to have clients, and most of the partners in the various law firms have their clients, and so you're almost like a small law firm yourself, working for the partners, doing what they need to make their clients happy. So that's kind of a very general macro view of what I do. Specifically, in terms of insurance defense, I handle lead paint cases. Once an individual, for instance, says that they've been poisoned by lead, and they get an attorney, or they're pro se, they file a lawsuit against the landlord. A lot of times those landlords will have insurance. We take over the case on behalf of the insurance company, and so we respond to the complaints, we interview witnesses, we do all aspects of discovery, including going to the actual trial and representing our clients. So that's kind of on the civil side. On the criminal side, we represent individuals that are charged with crimes.
Got it. And can you give us a bit more insight, Sidney, into what a day in your life is like with your practice? What are you doing throughout the day, and how do your days vary?
The easiest way to say it is that I'm a problem solver. That's something I kind of pride myself on. So you have your cases, you have your set of matters that you're working on, whether it's responding to discovery requests, contacting your clients, trying to find out their availability to answer questions, things of that nature. And then while you're doing that, you very well may get a phone call about someone who was arrested the night before, whether it was for a DUI, or if a federal agency, the FBI, the SEC, somebody comes knocking on a business saying that that business has been doing something illegal. And so you have to always kind of have your phone on the ready so that you can try to help individuals with situations that they're in. And so that's essentially the day in the life. You're always at your phone or at your desk trying to make yourself available to help people with their problems.
Great, thank you. And Virginia, you touched on it a bit, but if you could cover a little bit more about the day in the life of a public defender.
Sure, Liz. Essentially, there is a lot of court involved for public defenders. Most of the significant period of time for their work, they're going to court, talking to prosecutors, figuring out what evidence they need to obtain, talking with clients to inform them about what their choices are, making court appearances in front of the judge, going to the jail to visit clients who can't come to them, talking to clients on the phone who are out of custody about their choices, and working together to, in our particular office, there's a lot of discussion about cases and strategies and how we can best help clients. So there's a lot of collaboration in addition to that individual work.
Thank you. And now I'd like to talk about some of the pros and cons of your practice. Virginia, I'll start with you. Can you tell us about what you love about your work, and then what some of the challenges are that you face?
Yes, I love working with clients. They are all very different people. They're all very interesting people. Everyone has a story. So when a client walks in, they are not simply the charge and the complaint. They're a human being. And so what I get to do is sit down and try to understand them, what they're dealing with, what struggles they have, why they may have ended up in this situation. A lot of times people end up being charged with crimes because they are mentally ill, they're chemically dependent, they don't have a support system, they haven't had a support system, and they're struggling. And what I get to do is learn more about them, learn more about what their goals are, about how to deal with their problem, and try to be present for them with their problem and help them solve the problem related to the case. But sometimes I get the joy of helping people try to solve their life problems too. A lot of times going going before a judge, you want to put yourself back on the right track, and helping people get back on the right track always creates a good it's a good situation from a bad one. And so it's hard. Their lives can be difficult, and all my clients are struggling with financial situations, struggling with poverty. So that, on top of the other issues, I like people, and I like helping those people. So, and that's my favorite part about what I do.
Great. And what are some of the challenges you face in this career?
Well, you know, it's probably not a shocking answer, but as you hear information about public defenders having too many cases, and there's not enough public defenders, and those are the things that I think are some of the greatest challenges, because what happens is we have a bunch of people who really do this because they really care about it. People become public defenders for lots of different reasons. They either believe in putting a check on law enforcement, they believe in challenging government, they love working with people like I do. They don't want to worry about some of the things Sidney talked about getting clients and worrying about financial pieces. They just want to practice law. And so so everybody's here for a passion. And at the same time, it's really frustrating when you have 100 cases and you're trying to serve individuals in a really professional way. And because of the high volume of cases, public defenders get more exposure, more trial experience, more client experience than a lot of people do. But we would always like to have more time to spend with our clients, more time to work on cases. And although I think that the way we're trained, we do a really good job at what we do, I would like to see us be able to have more time and attention to clients and cases. That's the greatest challenge.
Got it. Thank you. Sidney, can you talk to us about the pros and cons of your practice?
Yeah, so the pros and cons of my practice are very similar to what you heard Virginia talk about. Maybe not necessarily the volume in terms of what you have to deal with in terms of government, but in terms of expectations of your clients. You want to try to make them happy. And a lot of times, especially if they're involved in the criminal justice world, that clock is a lot slower than what they want to have happen. So a lot of times you're fielding calls trying to find out what the status is, what the update is, when nothing is happening. And a lot of times when the individual is charged, it's affecting their day-to-day life. There's a lot of collateral consequences that can impact just simply getting a charge of any type of criminal charge. And so you kind of have to hold their hand, and that's not necessarily a con, but sometimes it can be difficult if you try to put yourself in their shoes, because you see some of the things that they're dealing with. In terms of civil litigation, I guess it was kind of unique for me making a transition from criminal as a prosecutor to civil litigation, because for the most part, attorneys are on their computers writing emails, writing letters, and a lot of times when you don't have that face-to-face communication like you do when you're a prosecutor and a public defender or someone with the defense bar, where you see someone in court every single day, you start becoming what I term an internet gangster, where you have folks that try to be nasty and mean and things of that nature through the development of the case. And it's really hard to do that in the criminal justice world when you are handling cases, because you're in front of judges all the time. You're in front of folks that you're trying cases against, so you don't really have a whole lot of time to be nasty. It's always going to come back around. That's probably the bad thing. And the thing that I dislike the most is that with technology, we're always constantly shooting off emails, going back and forth without just having a phone conversation to see if we can't resolve issues.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'd like to talk about the top 3 skills that you think are important in your field. And I'll start with you, Sidney. What would you say are the top 3 skills that would be great for someone who wants to practice criminal law?
Time management. You got to be able to be efficient with your time and trying to get items out, especially if you are in government, whether you're a prosecutor or a public defender. You don't really have a lot of time. You never have enough time to do everything that you would like to do on a case. So trying to become proficient. The other is know thy judge. A lot of times you're going to be in front of various judges, and judges, regardless of what you might think the right procedure is, in their courtroom, those are the rules in terms of how they see it. So becoming familiar with the judges, what they like, what they dislike, I think that's a key skill that can really put you head and shoulders above some of your other colleagues down the road. And the third one is, I say be aggressive. You gotta, especially as a young attorney trying to get out there, you need to get into court. You need to argue motions, to try cases. That's the only way that you're going to learn. It doesn't really matter if you make a mistake as long as you're trying to do the right thing. So I think you really need to have a little bit of aggressiveness in you if you really want to be successful with trial work.
Great, thank you. And Virginia, what would you say about the top 3 skills for someone who wants to be a public defender?
Sure. I think Sidney has given some good advice, and I'll add to that. I think it's, as a public defender, you really need to have people skills. I've said, how many times have I said the word people? But you really need to have people skills because you are working with clients, you're negotiating with prosecutors, you're standing before judges, and I think what Sidney said about knowing your audience is tremendously important. So you need to have the ability to be able to navigate those different environments with people, and because you're seeing the same people over and over again, you need to maintain your credibility and also, fight the fight that you need to fight. And so there's a lot of balance involved in that. So that involves a lot of people skill. I think the second thing is you need a tremendous amount of patience. And I will tell you, I am not the most patient person in the world. So never fear if you're not feeling patient. You can still be a public defender, but you need a lot of patience because, a lot of times you got to think. We start out in a situation where, it's when Sidney was a prosecutor, I know he did his job. He reviewed the case. He saw that the facts were there and saw that the evidence was there before he charged a case out. And so we end up in that situation where a lot of times the case has been reviewed and prepared, and you have something that's solid. And so the clients are upset. Of course, they're upset, and people want to run things through faster. I think Sidney has touched on that, and I think that happens not just with clients. I think it also happens with the court system. And so, being patient with frustrated people is whether they're the client, whether they're the court, whatever it is, and keeping your cool is really important to the process. And I think also, I think I would agree with Sidney that getting out there and doing it is very important. And whether that, whatever aggressive means to you, and I think everybody has a different style. I think you should I think what's really important, I think, in any practice is being yourself and figuring out, don't give up yourself for some lawyer you've created in your head. And I think the greatest way to do that is to watch people, as a young lawyer, in practice and see what speaks to you. Watch people in court and see what speaks to you and what works for you, and then steal those things. There's no great idea is really original. And I think it's don't do the things that don't feel good to you, and do the things that do feel good to you stylistically. And I think that allowed me to find myself and figure out what kind of lawyer I was. And the important thing was that I stayed my person. I was still a real human being under there, and I think that's very important. Juries don't like people that aren't human beings.
It's great career advice and great life advice. I like it. And Virginia, what is one thing people would be surprised to know about being a public defender?
What would people be surprised about? I think the question that people often ask is, how do you do that? If you know your client's guilty, how do you do that? And I think what people would be surprised about is that the people who are doing this work are not heartless or don't care or don't have any compassion towards victims, or they're not hard-nosed, most of the people who do the work that I do are really compassionate people who can see all the sides of the situation, and they understand and know that their ethical obligation is to be really the only person there that is there to be on the side of the defendant. That is their job. And so we have to really set aside our human feelings sometimes to do what we do. And sometimes that makes defense attorneys look like jerks. And really, most of these people are really sweet, lovely people. They're really sweet, lovely. They're sweet, lovely, kind people, and they couldn't do this work if they weren't. And so I think that when you watch defense attorneys on television, or you run into some really tough defense attorneys, underneath there's a human being. And I think people may be surprised to know that, and know that we worry about all kinds of things, but we're loyal ethically and morally to our clients, and that's why we do what we do.
And Sidney, what would people be surprised to know about your criminal practice?
The flexibility. As a prosecutor, I worked out of one specific office representing a specific kind of area. And no matter if it's in the public defender's office or the state's attorney's office, a lot of times you're limited in terms of your geographical area. But when you're at a firm, and you can handle cases all across the state or across the country, it allows an enormous amount of flexibility to get into some other jurisdictions, to be in front of some other judges, and all of that can help you with not just getting your credibility, but also feeling more confident about your practice.
Great, thank you. And finally, Sidney, how has ABA involvement boosted your career?
Well, there's no secret that I'm a strong advocate of the ABA. I think there are very few organizations that open their arms like ABA did when I was a young lawyer. It puts you in a position that you can network with folks that know more than you, that you can learn from them on a local and national level. And so the ABA has allowed me to connect with folks and get job opportunities, to learn more about substantive areas of law that I was interested in. And it basically took away that frightness that I might have when I'm calling a federal judge or some big-time partner or the federal defender for a particular area. Because when you're calling on behalf of the ABA trying to organize a program or put something together, that gives you instant credibility, and people listen.
Great, thank you. And Virginia, can you tell us about how the ABA involvement has boosted your career?
Absolutely. What I think is really great about the ABA is that there are divisions that really focus on particular areas of interest in criminal law. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Criminal Law and Mental Health division, and mental health is one of my great passions, in helping people navigate the court system who struggle with mental health issues. And so it's really a great opportunity to be in a space with people who have that same interest, whatever side of criminal law that they're on, and to learn from them and talk with them and create things, create webinars, do good things to further, I think, best practices in these areas of law, and working together with people on all sides of it. So that really has been great, and I've really enjoyed that.
Great, thank you. And we have some excellent questions from the audience here. And one common theme I'm seeing with the questions coming in is whether you're a new attorney or an experienced attorney and you don't have the experience in criminal law but you want to do it. And I'll start with you, Virginia, what do you recommend for people trying to break into the field but don't have the trial experience? Maybe they don't have any practice experience, or maybe they're a 20-year lawyer who's been doing civil litigation who wants to get into criminal. What do you recommend people do to break into this field?
What I recommend is that people volunteer their time because some places are more enthusiastic about others. In our district, there are people who volunteer their time. They're giving something to our agency, giving something to the clients, and what we feel like we give back to them is the opportunity to have experience, to work together with people, to learn. And so I know a lot of times that's really difficult when you're trying to put food on the table, is to do some volunteer work. But that is what I've seen has been most successful with people, whether you're a law student, and we have a practice rule here where students can actually get in court. A lot of states have that, as well as like an attorney who's changing careers or starting out, and those have been tremendously successful. And it's allowed individuals to determine, do they really want to do this, and also to learn. And that's a way that I would suggest people get involved.
Great. And Sidney, do you have any other perspective or anything to add on that front in terms of getting involved in criminal law without already being experienced?
Yeah, so I think some of the things, whether you have a lot of experience in just another area or you're just starting out, there's a lot of different ways that you can get into court. And at the end of the day, that's what you want to be. You want to be comfortable in court addressing issues for your client. So some of the ways that you can go about doing that is by starting off by doing some pro bono work, just like what Virginia said, but maybe you're working on expungements. Maybe you're assisting on, if you're a good writer, whether you're starting out or you have a lot of civil litigation, you could take a pro bono matter in terms of an appeal, something that's still in your wheelhouse because you know how to write. And you can get someone to kind of shadow you, or you can shadow someone else and help you with that process. Volunteering at some of the various pro bono clinics in your state can get you into court if you're not used to being in court, and that's where you're going to get your comfort level.
Great, thank you so much. And we have a follow-up question on the ABA. Someone asked about what the ABA has for law students to further their understanding and practice of cyber crimes and cyber terrorism. I'm not sure we have it.
Can I take that?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so the criminal justice section, which I'm on the section counsel for, no matter if you're a law student or you're very senior in your career, they have a number of committees, including committees that address those specific issues, those specific areas. So the first thing that I would do if I'm trying to find out more about a particular area is I would just go to the ABA website, and specifically the ABA Criminal Justice website, and look at the different committees that they have. I can assure you with 100% certainty that whomever the chair is of the various committees, if you reach out to them, they'll let you know how you can get involved. They'll let you know when the meetings are, so that you can get more substantive knowledge of whatever area you're interested in.
Great. That was great to know about. I wasn't actually sure of the answer, so I'm glad we had you here. And you guys, we keep getting great questions, and this is fantastic. Virginia, I'll direct this one to you since you are on the defense side. I had a question from someone. If someone wants to ultimately be a federal public defender, would you recommend starting out as a prosecutor? What do you think about sort of switching sides along the way? And does the public defender, do they see that as valuable experience?
Sure. That has a different answer in every state. In some locations, public defender organizations expect consistency and loyalty, and will perceive having a career as a prosecutor or opportunity as a prosecutor to be contrary to the intention of trying to pursue being a public defender. That's not true in Minnesota. In Minnesota, I can name you person after person after person who has been on both sides of criminal law, and I have a number of people that work with us who are former prosecutors. One thing I regret is that I've been a career public defender and I've never prosecuted, and so I feel like that would have given me a different dimension. And in Minnesota, no one thinks a thing about that, because we understand we're professionals in that, whatever side you're working on, you might have a personal leaning one way or another, but the experience is what is tremendous. And being a better lawyer and being better for your client is what's most important. And so that has different answers in different geographic locations, to be honest. But I know people who've worked on both sides, and Sidney's worked on both sides, and it's I think any experience is a good experience for each side. They just have different qualities.
Yeah. And Sidney, based on your experience as a prosecutor, how would prosecutors view someone who started on the defense side?
It's much like what Virginia said. I'm sure folks may decide in what jurisdiction you're in, but quite frankly, the job market has been tough for some time. So it's not unusual to see people jumping around. And as a prosecutor or as a public defender or defense attorney, you're going to get valuable experience, and you're going to have a different perspective whenever you jump from one side to the other. So I think most prosecutors enjoy having conversations with defense attorneys because they see some things that maybe as a prosecutor I wasn't really thinking about. And so it's always nice to have someone with that type of a background around that you can share things with. At the end of the day, it's more about how you articulate why you want to make that move. And that's going to make someone want to bring you into their office or vice versa.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, as in my experience as a recruiter, I work with people who are looking to switch practice areas. And I think generally speaking, especially for anyone starting out, if you get started out in a practice that you don't want to do for the rest of your career, learn everything you can from that. And when you're looking to switch, identify all of the skills you've learned that would be applicable to the new practice area. And like you touched on, Sidney, really be able to articulate why you're looking to switch, a proactive reason about why you're interested in the new practice area. And that type of preparation goes a long way, because it's true, if you're in a difficult job market, you might not start out in the area that you want to be in, but it doesn't mean you can't switch careers. So, that concludes all the time that we have. Thank you guys so much for such an interesting and informative program. We really appreciate your time, and thanks to the audience for such great questions.
Thank you, Liz. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, this is Emily. Thank you all for attending today, and thanks Liz and Sidney and Virginia for all your perspective, for all of your views. Attendees, please do fill out the survey before you go, but I also wanted to point out that we have a few upcoming webinars, more in the Career Choice series coming up, and then we also have some Career Advice series webinars coming up that occur monthly. And also, please be sure to check out our website, and we do have a job board at jobs.americanbar.org. And thank you again, and have a great day.
Thank you.